What's up, nerds and nerdettes and we little nerdlings all? To our buddy Big John and G, the Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. And may all your games be legendary. So you have already seen the unboxing. You have already seen the setup. What? You haven't? I got a little time. If you want to stop this or pause it and go check out the other two videos leading up, then feel free. I'll be here when you get back. But otherwise, it's time for another episode of Big Johnny G's How to Play. And this time we got 1001 Nights. A Crazier Eights game by Recoculous. So why don't we find out how you play?
Shut up and sit down.
So now, I hope you've had time to go check out at least the setup of this game. It's very simple, it's very fast, and the setup is shorter than the video once you know what you're doing, I assure you. So, we got ourselves the board set up right here. We got the deck out, and the cards ready, and they've already been shuffled, but I'm going to give you guys another little look, and a quick little soft shuffle there. The magic of my great poker skills. Alright, the first thing I actually want to do is I want to talk about the cards before we talk about the game. So why don't we take a look at some. Now, out of the two different kinds of cards that you can play, one of them is an event card. And by the way, you will notice that the cards have suits, 4 different suits. This is a moon. And they have numbers similar to a regular playing deck. But anyway, event. Event is one kind of card that you can play. An event is a card that gets played, and what is written down here is what happens. In this case, choose an opponent who controls at least one asset. You gain control of an asset of the opponent's control of their choice. So you pick an opponent that has at least one asset in front of them in play, and that's the next card we're going to be talking about. And they have to choose which of the cards that they're going to give you. If they only have one, I guess it's not much of a choice. So event cards, these are cards that the event happens, and then it's over, and then this will be going back to the discard pile. Actually, it'll be going underneath to the bottom of the discard pile. The other card that I mentioned is the asset card. So an asset card is a card that when you play it, it stays in front of you. It's in your play area. And its effect takes place when it says it does, if it's possible to take place during the course of the game. They usually take place either at the beginning of your turn, as this one says, or, focus, at the end of your turn, such as the Aladdin card here. So, if you had this card sitting in front of you, then at the beginning of your turn, you may choose an asset card from your hand that shares a color with an asset you control. If you do, put it into play on the table. You may still play a card from your hand this turn. So that gives you extra cards that you're going to be able to bring out and play at the beginning of your turn at no cost, so to speak, to you. Now, as I showed you, there was also cards that take place at the end of your turn. The Aladdin card, you may choose an opponent who controls 3 or more assets. If you do, you may gain control of any one asset that player controls. That's pretty cool. There's another asset here I wanted to show you. There's another asset here. Some of them are conditional. So the Infernal Ifrit is an asset you can play out in front of you. But as it says here, you may only play the Ifrit from your hand if an opponent controls 2 or more assets. So this is conditional on the other players. So you have to be careful. Some of the cards are written like that. And then, by the way, as you see, at the end of your turn, destroy an asset of your choice that's in play on the table. That's any asset at all. So I wanted to point out those cards. Now that you've seen the 2 different types of cards, and you have an idea of what they do, what their differences are, let's talk about playing the game. So now the game is broken down. Each turn is broken down into 4 phases. Now the first phase is called the beginning phase. Now the beginning of the game, the very first round of the game, this will be skipped for obvious reasons. Moving forward, the beginning phase, there will be cards that may come into play during the game, such as Princess Sit Al Sun. I don't know if I said that right. I tried. Princess Sit Al Husun. And it says, at the beginning of your turn. So any cards that you have in play, in the play area in front of you, that are marked like this, they will take effect. Now the second phase of the game is called the draw phase. So it's during this phase of the game that each player, one at a time, on their turn, has to draw the top card from the deck. Now remember from setup that when you start the game, the top card is going to be set out to start the game off. So this will be starting things off with a purple 10. 10 of I. Anyway, so yes, the draw phase. It is your turn. You're going to draw a card, not show it to anybody. Not show it to anybody but yourself. And you're going to take it, and you're going to put it in your hand. You're going to add it to the cards that you have right there in your hand. Now we get on to the main phase. The main phase of the game is where you get to play a card from your hand. So if this is the way things have been set up since the beginning of the game, and you are now up to main phase, you're going to take a look at your hand, not let anyone else see it, of course, because then they'll be able to whoop you in this game. So with the start of 7, you're going to be drawing a card, so your hand is going to look, I don't know, something like this. So now during your main phase, there are 2 things you can do. You can do one of them, you can do either of them. And that is, you can play an asset from your hand, such as Jafar. Get that in focus, there we go. So you could play this is an asset, so it would sit out in front of you. Whenever you discard an event card, after you have already discarded a card this turn, you may play that card's ability. If you do, it stays on top of the discard pile. So that'd be interesting. So you could play that, for example, or you could play an event. Remember, after you play an event, it goes to the bottom of the discard pile. Because it wasn't a discarded card, it was a played card, so it is not discarded, so it has nothing to do with the needed requirement. So it goes underneath. Important. Remember that. Now the other thing you can do is you can discard during the main phase. So a purple I have in this hand that I just showed you a moment ago. There are 3 purple cards. So I could discard any one of these to the top of the deck, lightening my hand by another card, getting it closer to 0 cards in my hand that I need to win. Now, it's a 10. I happen to have 1 10 in my hand as well. So these would be the cards, if this was your hand, these would be the cards that would be your option to discard. either an I or a 10. So let's just say that we got rid of this 10. So these go back into our hand. And remember, nobody sees their hand but you. It goes back in your hand. And now it moves on to the fourth and final phase of the game, the end phase. And the end phase, you deal with any cards you have out in play, which I believe all of them will be assets, that say very specifically at the end of your turn. Such as this card, Alibaba. At the end of your turn, if Alibaba is the only asset you control, you may gain control of any one asset controlled by an opponent. Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, my friend. So yes, that's when this would come into play. After that, the next player goes, and the beginning phase. It's going to go clockwise from the start player. And there you go. Now, there is another kind of card in the game, and that is the eights. The eights are all unique because they are wild. And if you notice, even the top left corner of the 8 card is different from the others. The others have this oval, this partial circle, while the 8 has this sort of, I don't know, banner. And the 8s can be played for any color at all. And really, that's that's all there is to play in the game. So just remember, 4 phases for each turn. You start with beginning phase, any card that has a beginning phase ability. Then you get into the draw phase, where you draw the top card of the deck. You get to the main phase, where you get to play a card from your hand, either an asset, maybe, or an event. And you may also discard a card from your hand if you want to. And here's another point I didn't make just a moment ago, and that is that you can discard or play a card in either order. You can either play a card, then discard, or you can discard, then play a card. And then it gets to the fourth and final phase, and that's just checking to see if any cards in play have end of turn effects and abilities. That's it. It's quicker to learn the game than it is to film about teaching you how to play the game. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for checking us out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Thank you so much for subscribing to Two Gun Pixie. And thank you so much for liking, for commenting, and for sharing our videos. That's so awesome. All right, thank you very much. I'm your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. And I am out of here.